Simone married her college sweetheart Trevor in her mid-20s. She was a warm-hearted black American woman from the Midwest, and he was a charming white American man who promised her the world. In the early days, their love was vibrant and full of hope. They moved to a cozy suburban town and dreamed of starting a family. But as the years passed, those dreams were met with heartbreak. After months of trying to conceive, doctor visits and prayerful nights, no pregnancy came. The word infertility cast a dark shadow over their once happy home. Trevor's attitude changed gradually but dramatically. At first, he was supportive, holding Simone through tears after each negative pregnancy test and assuring her they'd keep trying. However, as time went on, his patience wore thin. Subtle accusations crept into their conversations. He never outright called her infertile in those early days, but Simone could feel his disappointment. Each month that passed without a positive result added tension between them. In social gatherings, Trevor's demeanor shifted too. When friends would innocently ask, "When are you two having kids?" Simone would force a smile and say they were working on it. Trevor, however, began to withdraw or change the subject coldly. Behind closed doors, he started making hurtful remarks like, "Maybe some people just aren't meant to be parents," while looking pointedly at Simone. Each comment was a dagger in her heart, deepening her sense of failure and guilt. Trevor's family, particularly his mother, only made things worse. His mother had always been polite to Simone, but Simone sensed an underlying tension. Being an interracial couple in a small town wasn't without its challenges, and although no one said it outright, Simone sometimes felt she had to prove she was good enough for Trevor's family. When the couple's fertility struggles became apparent, Trevor's mother started dropping insensitive comments. "It's such a shame. Our family has always been so fertile," she said once over dinner, patting Trevor's hand. "I was hoping for grandchildren by now. Maybe it's time to consider other options, or other paths." Simone understood the veiled message. She was the problem, the outsider who couldn't continue their family line. The pressure mounted. Trevor became more distant, often coming home late from work or finding excuses to avoid conversations about fertility treatments or adoption. Simone suggested seeing a specialist together or couples therapy, hoping to save their marriage and find a solution, but Trevor brushed off the ideas. He grew colder and more resentful each day. Finally, the breaking point came in a heated argument on a rainy night. Trevor came home to find Simone looking through IVF clinic brochures at the kitchen table. Instead of hope, his face showed frustration. He slammed the mail down and blurted out, "I can't do this anymore, Simone. I'm tired of all this failure." His voice was laced with cruelty as he continued, "Maybe we should just accept it's never going to happen. Maybe I'm not supposed to waste my life on this." Simone's eyes welled up with tears as she softly asked, "Waste? Your life? Is that what you think our marriage is?" Trevor, fueled by months of pent-up bitterness, replied harshly, "A marriage without children isn't what I signed up for. I wanted a family, a real family. I have that right." The implications stabbed at Simone. If she couldn't give him children, in his mind their marriage was meaningless. Despite the pain, she tried to reason with him, reminding him of their love, of vows to stand by each other in sickness and in health, in good times and bad. But Trevor's mind was made up. In that charged moment, he revealed something he had been hiding. He'd been confiding in a female colleague, Marissa, who understood him and wanted the same things he did. Simone realized with horror that Trevor had emotionally, and perhaps physically, checked out of the marriage long before this fight. Within weeks, divorce papers were served. Numb and devastated, Simone signed them quietly. There was little fight left in her. Her spirit was crushed under the weight of feeling inadequate and betrayed. At the final divorce hearing, Trevor looked relieved, almost eager, while Simone fought back tears. He had already moved on in his heart. Rumors soon reached her that Trevor was dating Marissa, the same colleague he'd mentioned. It hurt, but Simone tried to block it out and focus on putting the pieces of her life back together. In the aftermath, the once confident and joyful Simone felt utterly broken. Fertility struggles had not only taken away her dream of motherhood at that time, but also the man she loved. She moved away from the small town they'd lived in, seeking space to heal. The marriage that once was her fairy tale had shattered, leaving her with scars and a lingering sense of unfulfilled longing. However, unknown to Trevor or anyone else at that time, Simone's story was far from over, and life was about to take a surprising turn that neither of them could have imagined. Now, before we continue with Simone's incredible journey, if you're new here, welcome to the family. This channel is all about real stories of resilience, karma, and people who refuse to let life break them. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens when Simone walks into that reunion, because what Trevor thought was his moment to shine. Let's just say, life had other plans. Also, drop a comment right now and let me know, have you ever had someone underestimate you, only to prove them completely wrong? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories. Now let's get back to Simone, because her life is about to change in ways nobody saw coming. After the divorce, Simone chose to start fresh in a neighboring state. She settled in a modest apartment in a small city, carving out a new life one day at a time. The early days were tough. She often cried herself to sleep, grappling with the dual loss of her husband and the children she never had. Every baby shower invitation from a friend, every mother pushing a stroller on the street, felt like salt in an open wound. But Simone was determined not to let tragedy define her. Inch by inch, she rebuilt her confidence. She landed a rewarding job as a social media manager for a community non-profit, where her creativity and voice could shine. Her colleagues appreciated her dedication and her warm personality. For the first time in a long while, she felt valued outside of her role as someone's wife or potential mother. Months turned into a year. During that time, Simone pursued hobbies she had set aside during marriage. She joined a local art class, finding solace in painting, and started jogging in the mornings, which did wonders for her peace of mind. With each small accomplishment, completing a 5K run, displaying a painting at a community center, her heart healed a little more. She was rediscovering herself, independent of the labels of wife or mother that had once weighed so heavily on her. Then came a life-changing surprise. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, Simone started feeling unwell. She had bouts of nausea in the mornings and found herself unusually tired. Initially, she dismissed it as lingering stress, or perhaps the flu. But when the symptoms persisted, a quiet thought crept into her mind, one she barely dared to acknowledge: could I be pregnant? It seemed impossible given all the struggles she and Trevor had, but Simone's period was late. With a trembling hand and a racing heart, she bought a pregnancy test. She nearly collapsed on the bathroom floor when she saw the result: positive. In disbelief, she took another test, and then a third, all positive. Simone's eyes overflowed with tears, but this time they were tears of a confusing blend of joy and fear. How could this be true? After all the times she had prayed for this moment, it was happening when she was alone. The doctors had never given a definitive reason for the infertility, they suspected. It might be a mix of stress and hormonal imbalance, but nothing was conclusive. Perhaps the stress of the marriage had been a factor, or perhaps it was just fate's mysterious timing. Seeking confirmation and medical guidance, Simone visited a doctor in her new city. An ultrasound not only confirmed the pregnancy but delivered another shock: she was expecting twins. Simone's jaw dropped and then curled into a laugh cry of astonishment when the doctor pointed out 2 tiny heartbeats on the screen. It felt as if the universe was giving her an overflowing blessing to make up for years of emptiness. 2 babies. She was overwhelmed, but a joyful awe washed over her. In that sterile ultrasound room, Simone felt something shift inside her. A broken piece of her began to mend. She placed a hand on her belly and whispered, "I already love you both so much." The pregnancy wasn't easy, especially as a single woman. There were days she battled morning sickness alone, coming home to an empty apartment without Trevor by her side to comfort her. There were nights she woke up with panic, realizing that in a few months she would have 2 tiny humans depending on her, and she'd have to do it all without a partner. But Simone was nothing if not resilient. She reached out to those who had always been her support system, her family and close friends. Her parents, upon hearing the news, were ecstatic to become grandparents and rallied around her. Her mother traveled to stay with her for a while during the later months of pregnancy, helping prepare the nursery and insisting Simone rest when she was overexerting herself. For the first time in a long time, Simone felt surrounded by love and hope rather than judgment and disappointment. Throughout her pregnancy, Simone debated whether to tell Trevor. After all, biologically the twins were his children, conceived in the final stretch of their marriage, perhaps around the time everything was falling apart. It was ironic and a little cruel how life had played out. Trevor had left her, labeling her as the one who couldn't give him a family. Yet here she was, carrying his children after the marriage was over. Simone was torn. A part of her felt he had a right to know, another part remembered the coldness in his eyes during their last fight and felt that he forfeited that right when he walked away. She decided to compose a letter to Trevor, explaining the situation. It was an emotional letter. She poured out how she discovered the pregnancy after their divorce, how she was willing to inform him so. He could be involved in the children's lives if he wished, but also making it clear she was prepared to raise them alone if necessary. Simone mailed the letter to Trevor's last known address, which was his parents' address in their hometown, and waited. Weeks passed with no response. Unbeknownst to Simone at the time, Trevor never saw the letter. He had moved in with Marissa and wasn't regularly checking mail from his old address. Perhaps if he had received it, things might have gone differently, but as fate would have it, Simone heard nothing back. Taking the silence as disinterest, she resolved to move forward on her own. In due time, Simone gave birth to 2 healthy babies, a boy and a girl. She named them Isaiah and Olivia, choosing names that felt both unique and meaningful. To her, and notably, nothing like the generic names one might expect. The moment she held them for the first time, tears streamed down her face. Isaiah had Trevor's hazel eyes and a tiny dimple on his chin. Olivia had Simone's nose and a shock of dark curly hair. They were beautiful. They were hers. In that moment, Simone realized a profound truth. She already had a family, one born from her own strength and love. It wasn't the traditional order of things, and it wasn't with the partner she once imagined, but it was perfect in its own way. Motherhood gave Simone a new sense of purpose. The early months with infant twins were exhausting beyond measure. Late-night feedings, endless diaper, changes and very little sleep, but every coo and tiny finger wrapped around hers made it worth it. She found herself singing softly to them at dawn, feeling gratitude that she'd been entrusted with these 2 little lives. The presence of Isaiah and Olivia also further mended her heart. The wounds from Trevor's abandonment started to fade as her days filled with baby giggles and the sweet chaos of raising children. By the time the twins were toddling around at about 15 months old, Simone felt like an entirely new woman. Stronger, more confident, and definitely busier. She had moved back to her hometown to be closer to her parents for support and because rent was cheaper, but she kept mostly to herself and her family circle. The gossip mill in town had quieted. Many people from her school days didn't even know. She had children now, since she wasn't active on her personal social media about it. Simone was content in her semi-private new life. She had her job, which she managed partly remote now, with the help of her mom babysitting, her painting hobby on weekends, and her 2 miracles who gave her endless love. Romance was the last thing on her mind during those months. Healing and personal growth took priority. She wasn't opposed to love if it ever knocked on her door again, but she certainly wasn't chasing it. How could she, when her hands were full of finger paints and baby bottles? And truthfully, a sliver of fear remained, fear of being hurt again, fear of a man walking out because of life's challenges. So she kept her social life modest, an occasional girls' night or a movie, outing when her parents could babysit, but nothing too entangled. Little did Simone know, the next chapter of her story, involving an unexpected reunion and a chance at new love, was about to begin, It started with a simple white envelope that arrived in her mailbox one crisp fall afternoon. Inside was an invitation that would soon propel her into a confrontation with her past and a leap toward her future. One Saturday, as Simone balanced a laundry basket on her hip and guided little Olivia away from pulling down a curtain, the doorbell rang. It was the mailman with a certified letter. Curious and a bit flustered, certified mail always made her anxious. She signed for it and immediately opened the envelope. It was an invitation to her high school's 15-year reunion, set to take place in just a month's time back in her hometown. They were hosting a weekend of events, a semi-formal gathering at the high school, gym on Friday night, and a family-friendly picnic at a local park on Saturday. Simone's initial reaction was a mix of excitement and dread. High school felt like a lifetime ago. She remembered herself as the bubbly cheerleader dating the quiet boy from the science club. Trevor had been studious and a bit nerdy back then, one of the things she found endearing. Many of her classmates she hadn't seen since graduation. Part of her was genuinely curious. How were her old friends doing? What did everyone become? Social media only told bits and pieces, but alongside that curiosity was an undercurrent of anxiety. A reunion meant possibly seeing Trevor again. They had been in the same graduating class. It's how they grew so close in the first place. If he got the invitation too, and surely he would have, would he attend? And if so, would he bring her? Simone's stomach did a little flip at the thought of Trevor walking into the reunion with Marissa, the woman he left her for. Flaunting might not have been in her vocabulary yet, but she could already imagine Trevor's smug face, proud to show off his new wife. Simone had heard through a mutual acquaintance some time ago that Trevor and Marissa got married within a year of the divorce. She also heard, and this stung at the time, that they were trying for a baby shortly after their wedding. So Trevor got what he wanted, a fertile marriage, as cruel as that phrase sounded. Simone still remembered the day she learned Marissa was pregnant. It was around the same time she herself was dealing with newborn twins. The irony was not lost on her then, and it still wasn't now. She carefully set the invitation down on the coffee table and sat on the couch, watching Isaiah and Olivia play on the living room rug with stacking cups. Olivia had managed to put a yellow cup on her head like a hat and was giggling, while Isaiah clapped his hands. The sight warmed Simone's heart and gave her a dose of courage. I'm not the same person Trevor knew, she thought. I'm stronger now. I have nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, she had everything to be proud of. 2 beautiful children, a steady job, and a newfound confidence. Why should she hide? That evening, after putting the twins to bed, Simone called her best friend from high school, Jasmine, who had also gotten the reunion invitation. Jasmine squealed in delight at hearing from Simone and immediately launched into an excited speech about how we have to go, it'll be fun. Simone laughed. Jasmine's energy was infectious as always. Still, Simone voiced her concerns. Jazz, I'm not sure about seeing Trevor. You know, with his wife and all. There was a pause, and then Jasmine replied with gentle firmness. Girl, you have every right to be there as much as anyone else. Don't let him scare you away. Besides, aren't you just a little curious to see the look on his face when he sees how amazing you're doing now? Simone smiled, imagining it. Jasmine didn't even know the half of it. She hadn't told many people, outside her family, about the twins, wanting to keep them out of gossip. She figured the reunion might be where folks found out, if it came up. After much deliberation, Simone sent in her please reply for the reunion events. She decided she would attend both the Friday night semi-formal and the Saturday picnic, but with a plan. For the Friday evening event, no kids expected there. She'd go alone, treat it as a chance to reconnect with old friends and show everyone, including Trevor, that she was thriving. As for the Saturday family picnic, she planned to bring her twins. It would be outdoors and casual, and she felt more comfortable having her babies there in a stroller where people could meet them. Part of her had a slightly mischievous thought if Trevor and Marissa were going to flaunt their new baby, or pregnancy at the reunion. How sweet would it be to quietly one-up them by introducing her children? It wasn't about competition, truly. It was about reclaiming her narrative. She was not the barren ex-wife that some might have assumed. She was a proud mother, and she had nothing to hide. In preparation for the reunion, Simone found herself feeling both nervous and excited. She treated it like a milestone in her healing journey. She went shopping for a new outfit for the Friday night event, something that would make her feel confident and beautiful. After trying on a dozen dresses, she settled on a classy deep blue dress. That hugged her figure just right and highlighted her warm brown skin tone. It was elegant with a bit of sparkle on the neckline, striking the perfect balance between sophisticated and eye-catching. When she tried it on at home with a pair of heels, even her mother said, "Wow, you look stunning. That dress was made for you." Simone hoped Trevor might see her and feel a pang of regret for ever letting her go, not out of spite. Well, maybe a tiny bit of spite, but mostly to remind herself that she was indeed desirable and worthy. Jasmine agreed to accompany Simone to the Friday event so that she wouldn't have to walk in alone. Meanwhile, Simone arranged for her parents to watch the twins on Friday night and then bring them to the picnic on Saturday to meet up with her. Her mom was more than happy to play nanny at the park while Simone socialized, and they made a plan for a grand reveal if one was warranted. Simone chuckled at her mom's enthusiasm. Grandma was ready to show off those babies as much as Simone was, if not more. As the reunion weekend approached, Simone felt the familiar flutter of butterflies in her stomach. It felt like standing on the edge of a significant moment in her life. She gave herself little pep talks while rocking the twins to sleep. "I've survived worse than an awkward reunion. I can handle this." She reminded herself of everything she'd accomplished without Trevor. The reunion was no longer about impressing old classmates. It was about proving to herself that she could confront her past without fear. And perhaps destiny had something more in store for her over that weekend. New friendships, closure, or even a hint of romance. Who could say? With her plans set and her resolve firm, Simone took a deep breath and stepped forward, into the next chapter, ready to face whatever awaited her at the reunion. The Friday night of the reunion arrived, clear and warm. Simone drove to her old high school, heart thudding in her chest with a mix of nostalgia and nerves. The school's gymnasium had been transformed into a charming event hall for the evening. Strings of twinkling lights hung. From the rafters, balloons in school colors bobbed at the entrance, and a big banner read, "Welcome back, Class of 10. He mentioned he wasn't officially in their graduating class, but the reunion committee had sent invitations to a few surrounding years as well, hoping to boost attendance. As she parked and stepped out of her car, smoothing down her blue dress, Simone caught a glimpse of herself in the windows. Reflection. She looked poised and radiant, a far cry from the uncertain young woman who had walked these halls years ago. Jasmine met her by the front doors with an excited squeal and a tight hug. "You look amazing," Jasmine gushed, stepping back to admire Simone's outfit. Jasmine herself was rocking a red jumpsuit that matched her bold personality. With a grateful smile, Simone returned the compliment. It felt good to have her friend by her side, a reassuring presence from the old days, making this less of a solo battle. They walked in together, immediately greeted by a wave of familiar yet older faces. There was the cluster of former football players, still swaggering but now sporting dad bods and receding hairlines. Near the refreshment table, a pair of women that Simone recalled as math. Club geeks were laughing over cocktails, now confident career women. As Simone moved through the crowd, several classmates lit up in recognition. "Simone! Oh my gosh, hi!" She found herself exchanging hugs and updates with people she hadn't thought about in ages. It was surreal but pleasant. Many remembered her as the cheerleader who married Trevor not long after school. Some treaded carefully around that subject. They'd heard whispers of the divorce, but Simone handled it gracefully, simply saying, "Yes, things didn't work out with Trevor, but I'm doing really well now," and steering the conversation to her job or asking about their lives. Short paragraphs of small talk flowed easily, boosting Simone's confidence with each friendly encounter. About half an hour into the event, as Simone was chatting with an old friend by a display of nostalgic yearbook photos, she felt a hush fall over a section of the room. She didn't need to turn around to know why. Trevor had arrived, and he wasn't alone. Curiosity mingled with the old hurt in her heart, but Simone steeled herself and finally glanced over her shoulder. Trevor stood at the entrance, looking dapper in a tailored navy suit, his arm wrapped around a visibly pregnant Marissa. Marissa wore a form-fitting gold-colored dress that showcased her round belly like a badge of honor. They made a striking couple, and their entrance was certainly calculated to draw attention. Simone watched as a few of their former classmates hurried over to greet them. She couldn't quite hear over the music, but she saw the proud grin on Trevor's face and the way Marissa's hand rested on her stomach. It was clear they intended to flaunt their happiness. Simone's throat tightened involuntarily. Even though she had expected this moment, it still hit hard to actually see him again with the woman he replaced her with. Jasmine gently touched Simone's arm, leaning in to whisper, "You okay?" Simone drew a slow breath and nodded. "I will be," she whispered back, forcing a small smile. She decided she wouldn't approach them immediately. There was no need to rush into a confrontation. Instead, she continued talking with others, always aware at the edge of her vision of Trevor and Marissa moving through the room, working the crowd. It didn't take long for Trevor to start doing what Simone feared, boasting. At one point, Simone was near enough to overhear him talking to a couple of former classmates by the punch bowl. Trevor's voice had that performative cheeriness that rang false to her ears. She knew his tones well enough. "Yeah, we're expecting our first this December," he said loudly enough that people nearby could hear. "We're just so blessed. I mean, starting a family is everything to us. Marissa and I always knew we wanted children right away." Marissa smiled and added in a syrupy tone, "Children are such a blessing. We're so lucky we found each other." Simone could sense the subtext, even if their audience couldn't. Trevor was indirectly emphasizing that with Marissa, he could have kids right away, whereas with Simone, he could not. It stung, but instead of breaking down, Simone felt a spark of indignation. How dare he come here and act like all those years with her meant nothing? And how dare he insinuate, even obliquely, that she was the reason he hadn't become a father then? She bit her lip, holding back the urge to march up and say something. "Not yet," she thought. "Don't give him the satisfaction of seeing you rattled." She stepped away to get some air on the other side of the gym, where an open door let in a cool evening breeze. On her way, a friendly voice called out, "Simone, is that you?" She turned to see Marcus, one of her old high school acquaintances, approaching with a broad smile. Marcus had been a couple of years ahead of her in school, but they'd interacted in a music club back then. He was a tall, handsome black man with an easygoing demeanor. She remembered he played the guitar and had a voice like butter. She hadn't seen him in ages. He looked even more distinguished now with a neat beard and stylish glasses. They hugged and started chatting. Marcus explained he had returned to town recently to take care of his aging father after years away, working in Chicago as an IT consultant. Simone shared a brief overview of her own journey, the job, moving back for family. She didn't yet mention the twins.